what is it that they say about that it takes 90 days for something to become a habit,
Yeah.
for something to become
Yeah.
part of, part of your routine and
Yep.
part of you.
Yep.
What do you think is the last thing that you did that became, you had to commit to it to make it into a habit?
You mean with recently?
Just,
Being
yeah,
a,
ever.
being a
Like, can you
dad,
think of a
being
time?
a dad again,
Yeah.
being a father again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Getting back into the routine
getting
of
back in. Yeah, getting
doing
back
that.
in the routine of relearning things again, and trying to navigate that is that's probably
Yeah, mine might be related to that because um planning meals every day, right? When you are not used to doing that. When it's just you and you're like, "Oh, I'll just eat whatever whenever I feel like it." And right, getting into the habit of I have to know what I'm
yeah,
making for
yep,
and making sure that things are in the cupboard for him, and
yep,
all of that planning ahead takes a lot of
yep,
um attention that I've never in my life had to be aware of, had to
yeah.
do.
Make
When you're just feeding yourself, it's totally different from okay, like I've got to make dinner every night. I've got to make sure he's got 3 meals,
yeah.
and snacks and all of that. That is, yeah, that would make sense.
That's my. It's in there because I had it as habit before, but you know, when you get used to something, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
And having to schedule around bedtime and knowing how long that's going to take and
Yep.
what that routine looks like.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you and I have been experiencing that together in so many ways.
That's the biggest one. And then
Yeah.
relearning how to be a dad and a teacher at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Because my other one has been doing this, right?
right.
And getting into the habit of doing it, and it's hard, and we just took a breather for a few days to kind of get things straightened out, and it's it's
Because we're back in the studio
back in the studio.
room. He's flown the nest again.
Yay.
Yep.
Which
Yes.
is good. It's all good. It all turned out really, really great. So welcome to the Teacher's Curse. I'm Annie.
And I'm Kevin.
Thanks for tuning in and sticking with us and giving us a few days to collect ourselves. And we're so happy to be back. Let's talk about teaching styles.
Yikes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
What would what would you say? How would you describe your teaching style?
It's very fluent. My teaching style has always been a fluent teacher, where you're fluent and you have material you want to get through, but you have to figure out, how where that fluency is. Because I can go if I see a learning moment, I go. So my teaching style is okay. Bring that back around again, back to the lesson again, and it might take a full circle to do that.
So your teaching style is to go off on tangents
Yeah.
and then try to tie it back in.
Yeah, and you have to you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, and you have to be very experienced at doing it. I do not recommend it for the novice.
You really enjoy lecturing,
I do.
which works for some
Mm-hmm.
and not for all. I think you are one where you pull it off really well, and the kids actually enjoy having that conversation with you, which is cool to see because, yeah, a lot of it's hard to lecture. It's hard to get up and talk and have enough to to talk about.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of knowledge. You got to have enough knowledge to keep them interested.
Yeah.
Let them flow through it to the where they're not speaking in nonsense. They're actually logically thinking through and guiding them through logic and understanding what that is too. At even a young age, if you try it younger too.
Yeah. You love to, how do I want to say this? You love to play devil's advocate too, I've noticed.
I do.
And you will throw out kind of shocking statements. You will throw out things that you almost want to upset them to see if it draws out that that reaction and that emotion that you want to see in order to get them interested in what you're talking about.
Yes.
I've noticed that you do that.
Walk to the edge.
In comparison, mine, I would say, and then I'm going to ask you what you think mine is. I would say mine is, I really enjoy discussion. I've always said the more talking that the students are doing, the better.
Yeah.
As long as it's, on target, of course, and it's structured in that and it's guided. The more that the students are playing off of each other, the happier I usually am in my classrooms. And that's with older kids.
Right.
Because yeah, I guess we can talk about how we
through the grade
change
level.
that, once we're working with the younger kids who obviously can't sit through an hour lecture.
No.
But when we're dealing, because both you and I, our element really is kind of with the older kids.
Yeah.
Especially if it's literature based, because we're both English teachers by trade. So I've always enjoyed, if we're talking about literature, I want them talking more than I am, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to pick the right stories too. You can pick any story you want to get to do literature with them. I found I'm a short story kind of guy. So, and I know
short stories are great. I recommend short stories for any English classroom.
Yeah. And you have to pick the right ones.
Yeah.
But again, and there's another thing is we're talking about getting back into the habits. We really need to walk back into doing that too, to be critical on ourselves. Because it's so easy to get into a funk, and, I think it fits with homeschoolers too. If you're homeschooling your child, we work with very, low percentage of students. We don't work with, we have 20 in the middle school and high school right now, but when they're kind of split. So getting your kids to conversate and to do that and put your teacher hat on and be mom and dad is tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you have a teaching style? And I'd love to hear other people's teaching styles when they're just teaching one-on-one, or if they have just one other.
Oh, that's the other thing with me is I really excel when I am one-on-one with a kid. I enjoy that immensely when I am working with small group or one-on-one with a kid. I tend to, I think that's when I'm my best teaching self, I think. I've had great classes teaching a group in the manner that I was talking about earlier. But I really enjoy one-on-one with a student. And I kind of learned that from you because, I did learn that from you because working in your classroom, and you would pull every single child back individually to work on their stories. And I saw how effective that was. And you really got to know each student by doing that. And it's so hard to do because there has to be a structured classroom where the rest of them are working independently so that you can work one-on-one.
Yeah, and that's where we came up with the term, you're stealing their education.
Yeah. Yeah, and they learn to have a respect for that.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. And I don't think I don't know if enough teachers utilize that kind of skill.
No, because again, you have to have high control of your class.
Yeah, and the expectation that I'm not
Yeah.
here to entertain you all the time.
Right.
You are going to work.
Right.
You are going to sit down and think through what it is that you are creating or the
Mhm.
problem that you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And it works really well.
Yeah, and you need to relate to. You might not like the kid's story either. You know, like you're not even in their genre. You're nowhere near it, but you still have to make it work. And you have to be excited about it. You have to take them down other roads to get their imagination to be where they are.
Yeah. It is really cool though when you do get a student who you love their story.
Yeah.
Um, that's a lot of fun, and it unless you are working with them one on one and building that, you might not get it until it's like an end product, and then you go, oh gosh, this could have been improved in this way and that way, and
Yeah.
and yeah,
And you don't have to spend a lot of time with them either. It's like 20-minute stints, 10-minute stints. Sometimes and only sometimes are you back there for, any really length of time. You have to use your 5 minutes and utilize it very
unless you have a
quickly.
really good para,
Right.
and then you're and then you're splitting that time.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah. What would you say is my teaching style from observing me? Now, I've always had a really hard time. I've always been nervous when you are in the classroom with me. Always.
Right.
Forever. I've been that way with you.
When you're engaged with the students, that's your teaching style. You always have to be engaged with them somehow. And they have to be like eye contact and looking and listening and so you're very attentive with your students. You're very right there.
Yeah. I'm right with them.
Right. Right.
We're going to get through this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Is that it?
yeah, I mean it really is that simple. There's no complications to your teaching style. It's very, right there. I want them to get from point A to point B, and we're going to do it with you and together, and we're going to be engaged in that, and then you watch them. I watch them grow.
I think one thing that I want to see you bring back that you used to do in the past and you don't do it so much anymore is when you sit on a stool in front of the classroom. And I'm kind of the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have like a teacher stool.
Yeah.
So I do get complacent where I'm just kind of like teaching from behind my desk, so I can also run the computer and do all that. And and we're in small rooms too, so sometimes it's just that way. But I've noticed for both of us, our energy changes if we are sitting up high
with them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in front of the room.
Yeah, even if it's off to the side. You're not like, don't picture yourself towering over them.
Yeah.
It's like off to an angle.
Now,
and you can.
You and I have both been described as tough teachers, though.
Yeah. Yep. That's another part of the style. We're tough. We're tough teachers.
What does that mean? What does that look like? Because some perceive that as being the mean teacher, right? Some it falls on such a spectrum of emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
For both students and parents.
Right.
What's kind of been your...
Well, I like to see where their limit really is and so
When do you choose to use your toughness?
after after they've realized that I've given them every opportunity to try to find themselves and to work through that, and then to watch them kind of realize that they're the old thing, you have to realize you have a problem before you can solve the problem. And a lot of kids, they don't know they even have, it's not even a problem, they just don't know their learning style, they just don't know. It's a problem that they've never been taught. It's just
Yeah.
it's a
The
thing.
thing that's holding them back.
Right. Because, right, getting their own way or whichever it is. And, you need to set that expectation where you want them, but you have to let them fall and go through these humps to do that. And then sooner or later it flattens, right? And then you push them the next level, the next level up. So when I choose to is very on the spot. When I can read the child, when I'm reading my students, it all depends. Some are very sensitive, and they're whichever, so they don't have a tough skin. And then I'll say, look, that wasn't your best, and I don't accept it, and neither should you. And I don't think they hear that very. They sit back. I don't accept that. And then that's kind of how.
I remember when we would do orientation nights,
Right.
and the kids would walk in, and you had this whole speech that you did with each of them that, like, listen, in my room, you're going to laugh a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to cry.
Yep.
You're going to work harder than you ever thought that you could.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a great way to set the tone of what they were going into. And some of them still came in nervous.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you always just left it on such a positive, like, you are going to do amazing things in my room, I promise. And it was just and I would take that too, because it's kind of a, here's what you're getting into.
Yep. Straight with them already.
And it's also easier. It's easier for teachers if they start tough at the beginning of the year, because you can always ease up,
mm-hmm.
which you almost always did,
mm-hmm.
unless we were getting to a point in the year where they were getting complacent and they were forgetting themselves. And then you could kind of put them back in check that way.
Well, we'd shut the curriculum down. I'd shut everything down, like when they get there.
Yeah, to reset.
And
it worked every time.
And I would shut it down.
Yeah.
I'd just close everything. You're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
As opposed to, hey guys, like, welcome to school. I'm here to be your friend, and you can come talk to me about anything, and being that, which I'm sure works for some teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I also adopted the method of, like, you start tough because you can ease up later.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least they know what the expectations are from day one, and you get a better result from that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then you are not fighting so much with behaviors or resistance to work. You know, you're not
mm-hmm.
fighting that throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
You get that out of the way at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the year is pretty smooth sailing for the most part.
Yep.
And always you were that teacher where the kids, after the last bell, came walking into your room and would hang out there for the next, 45 minutes, and you had to kick them out of your room.
Because I tell them I don't like you.
I know.
I don't like you. And for some, I know the autistic ones that were on the spectrum where they were trying to learn idioms and understand them and learn sarcasm and all that other stuff. I was great for them.
Because once they get it, they love it, and
it's like, oh, wait a minute, he just stayed after for that student. Why wouldn't he do that? Well, he told me he wouldn't do that. What do you mean?
Yeah. And then it got to the point where you had to have, a poetry club at the end of it because they were just there anyway, and they wanted you to read their poetry they've been working on. And it was like, gosh, let's just make a club out of it because they won't go home.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was fun. And it was amazing to me. As a student, I was the one who always liked the tough teachers too.
Mm-hmm.
I much preferred to have, and it's usually the male teachers. Not always. I definitely had some badass female teachers.
Miss Klein came right flying into my head.
The what?
Miss Klein.
Oh, ooh. Yeah. No, mine was Mrs. Stokes. Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But the male teachers that people were often afraid of were often my favorite teachers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why with you, because you're a tough room.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, oh no, I've got his number. I get what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it, we were able to have that balance, of, and we still do. That's what's great is we have that balance, but they know that I'm going to be tough, but it's in a different way.
Yeah.
It's in that way of like, no, you're not going to get away with, I can't, and you're not going to get away with not trying.
Mm-hmm.
But we can approach it from two different angles. And I think that that's been really effective for us.
Yeah, it has.
And why we've been able to go and grow together as a married couple.
Yeah.
In that way, because we have that balance.
Yeah. Well, when you have the rapport of confidence in yourself and you have children that are coming in 2 years, 3 years behind reading, have no confidence, and we've seen this across many other atmospheres and schools, but in ours in particular, why we're so good at getting the kids to read is because they trust right off the bat that our expectation is high and I'm there to teach you and we can have fun later.
Yeah, because humor is a huge part of what we do in both of our rooms, right? We're going to be tough on you, but we're going to learn to laugh at ourselves.
Yeah, we're going to laugh at ourselves, and we're going to be okay with that.
Yeah, and the kids don't get to laugh at each other.
No.
But they learn to laugh with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also something that you and I probably overlook a lot, but it really is a huge part of what we've always done.
Yeah.
Is approaching things with a little bit of sarcasm,
mm-hmm.
A little bit of self-deprecation,
mm-hmm.
And keeping it lighthearted.
Yeah.
It just it works. We've seen amazing things with that formula.
Yeah. And we contribute these to new students, so the teaching style is still there. Like, you tell them, you need 4 chapters. We'll just go through some of the curriculum. You need 4 chapters in social studies, 4 chapters in science, plus 2 research papers that are 2 to 3 pages long, and then you have your 2 short stories you have to do. And when the kids come to you and they've never had that expectations that they could do that. Mine is, and I hope they don't watch this, is that I get to see the student try their ass off to make that, and they've only done 1 chapter in each subject.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they're new and they're coming out of not knowing how to go over that. So letting them kind of work through that and watching the rest of the students, do what they're doing, and they're catching up, and they're and you keep checking in with them to that degree. And then they reach in and they go, I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't as good as, they told me I was.
Yeah.
And they their face goes blank. And that's where you get to move a little bit. We have chapter essays after each chapter, so I know that they read them, 5 paragraphs. And that's kind of where my lenience is in. And I say, okay, I negotiate with them. I'll say, I'll take the essays off you, but you still have the 4 chapters to do, right? Or the chapter to get into those chapters. So the first term, especially when you're reteaching a child to be confident and to move through that,
Because it can seem so daunting.
it is very daunting to them.
Anytime I've watched you teach, it's like, oh my gosh, he's asking what of them? But the important thing is we've done it enough that we know what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have we seen those kids come in and they're wide-eyed going, he wants me to do what? But then by the end of the year, they're cruising through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that's the magic of it,
Mm-hmm.
is having that patience and that knowledge that, yeah, it seems really scary now, but by the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be easy for you.
Because your job as the educator is to educate, not teach, right? So that's why their book work is open book for our middle school and high schoolers. When they come in, they come into us at 6th grade. So learning and teaching them how to
do things independently.
Yeah, to work that kind of independent work with that, and then having them. I really want, so my curriculum is, I want them to have 10 chapters done for the year. I give them 14. So, and I don't tell them that I want 10.
Right.
I said, we've got to get through 14 of these chapters. You need to get in here. Here's where you are.
Right. That's what that I had mentioned that in the last one, where you set the bar here.
Yeah.
They're only going to get here.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and I think some people think you're setting them up to fail, but they don't know that. So how could they be setting anybody up to fail? They don't know that I want the 10. I want their best. I know what they can do.
And when they, they're like, I didn't get it done.
Right.
And they reach that point of like, I didn't meet what I needed to. And you go, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you did great work there. And I can tell that you tried your butt off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that switch goes. And then they go, okay, maybe I can do it.
Step it one time higher.
Yep. And you see it grow. Go and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are teaching styles. There's probably more.
Yeah, we could talk about this
more to it
forever.
than that, but
yeah, the big thing is, setting expectations
mm-hmm.
at the beginning. Meet it with a little bit of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Do what, as a teacher, you are the most comfortable with. Whether that's lecturing, whether that's
mm-hmm.
more one-on-one time, and making that work to your advantage. And set the bar really high, and, still applaud them when they worked really hard and still didn't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And doing it for your own child, that is the teacher's curse.
Yes.
So if you have one and you need to push your child to stay consistent, but you get to see them grow. And I think sometimes we push our own children a little too far when we look back at our other kids that are in the room or whichever. But that's just nature. That's what we just do naturally. And that's hard to guide sometimes.
I think that's the closest we've ever been to actually putting down, when people say, how do you do it?
Yeah,
that's the closest we've gotten.
She's right.
If you have any comments on this episode or any other episodes that we put out, please email us at teacherscursepod@gmail.com. If you are interested in any of the services that we offer at Go and Grow Education Services, look up gogrowtutor.com. You can contact us from there. Make sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel or listen to us on Spotify and subscribe there. This has been The Teacher's Curse. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Annie.
And I'm Kevin.
Leather Brows out.